The mockery started, as it always did, with a laugh sharpened into a blade, and this time it was aimed squarely at the thin silver band on Vivian Cross's finger during the Thursday strategy huddle at Ashford and Vale Capital. "Is that a pawn shop special, or did you lose a bet with a Renaissance festival?" sneered Mackenzie Vale, the 23-year-old daughter of senior partner Preston Vale, tossing her hair as 13 colleagues suddenly found their tablets fascinating and their coffee cups worth studying in intricate detail. Vivian said nothing, only turning the ring once beneath the fluorescent lights, its surface worn smooth by 2 decades of quiet devotion rather than any jeweler's polish. A small compass rose engraving, barely visible beneath years of handling. What none of them knew, not Mackenzie with her inherited title, not Preston with his rehearsed authority, and not the 11 others pretending to review quarterly projections, was that Vivian had worn that band every single day since she was 19 years old, through 2 apartment fires, a broken engagement, and the long, silent months she'd spent believing her father was never coming home. For 6 years, Vivian had been the invisible architecture of that office, arriving before the sun and leaving the moment the clock allowed, quietly reconciling the numbers that everyone else in that mahogany-paneled tower was too important or too careless to check. She had watched Mackenzie breeze into the firm 18 months earlier, straight from an overpriced leadership retreat, mispronouncing basic terms in client calls, blaming junior analysts for her own 6-figure miscalculations, and somehow floating upward anyway because her surname opened doors that competence alone never could. None of that friction had ever truly rattled Vivian. Not the eye rolls, not the whispered jokes behind the break room door, but the comment about the ring landed differently, because that ring was never simply an heirloom to admire or mock. It was a signal etched by a man who had vanished from public life 14 years earlier, under circumstances the financial press still argued about at dinner parties. A father who had once told her, gripping her shoulders in a dim hospital corridor, "The moment they see your worth, they will try to claim it, so let them underestimate you until the day it costs them everything." At exactly 2:15 that afternoon, the marble corridor on the executive floor fell into an unnatural hush as Julian Ashford, the reclusive billionaire whose signature alone could move currency markets, stepped off the private elevator, flanked by absolutely no one, because Julian Ashford never required company to feel powerful. Vivian was crossing that same corridor with a compliance folder tucked under her arm when Ashford stopped mid-stride as if he'd walked into glass, his gaze locked on the ring, his voice dropping into something between disbelief and dread as he asked, "Where did you get that? And who exactly is your father?" She answered him plainly, without theater, saying only that her father's name was Corbin Ash, and watching the color drain entirely from Ashford's face as 2 decades of buried history rearranged itself behind his eyes in real time. By the time the emergency board session convened that same evening, Chairwoman Odette Marsh was reading aloud from a sealed 2004 partnership agreement bearing Corbin Ash's original signature, a clause stating that should any direct heir of his ever present that ring within these walls, they were to be granted unquestioned standing and protection from any executive interference, a clause Preston Vale had apparently forgotten existed the moment he demanded Vivian's badge be confiscated for insubordination. Within the hour, security was escorting a red-faced Preston Vale from the building for 11 documented compliance breaches traced directly to credentials he'd handed his own daughter, while Mackenzie sobbed in the lobby, insisting it had only ever been a joke about a ring, unaware that Julian Ashford's fund had already withdrawn $9 billion in protest of the culture that had let her cruelty go unchecked for so long. When the board later offered Vivian a permanent seat with full voting rights, she declined it gently but firmly, closing the ring inside a small velvet box and sliding it across the table, telling them only, "I didn't come here to inherit power. I came to make sure you remembered what integrity costs when you stop paying attention to it, before walking out into the evening without a single glance back. If this story moved you, please subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends and family. We create entertaining and inspiring stories for our viewers, and your support helps us continue making great content for you.